Hello everybody, welcome back to the stream. Oops, hold on. Alright, my microphone was coming in a little bit hot, but we're good now, we're good. I always have to change my microphone settings for Discord, and then I forget to change it back. Anyway, we're going to be continuing on with some building out of the foundational work for the meta progression system. I've basically been spending the majority of the afternoon here reworking or continuing to rework how data is passed through the system. That's kind of where I left off this morning. And yeah, I think we're almost there. There's a couple of minor things that I have left to do now to finish that sort of like data flow. And then we could start maybe continuing on with Yeah, we can continue on with the meta progression system and how that's actually working. So yeah, I think this is going to be good though. I'll explain sort of what I have to do here in just a second. But in the meantime, let me zoom this in. And also, we got to go through this first. So Alchemortis is available for wish listing. That's the game I'm working on now. So if you are interested in dark fantasy roguelite auto battlers where you can create your own builds and synergies, definitely check it out. The playtest is available right now, so you could just scroll down, click this request access button, give it a shot, give me your feedback. That's what playtests are for. It's not a demo. The game is not final. It's just for collecting feedback on what exists so I can fix it. And you could also support the game and me on Patreon. If you subscribe at this sponsored tier here for at least 1 month, I'm going to send you an Alchemortis Steam key when the game launches, so that way you don't have to buy it on Steam again, and your name will be listed in the in-game Alchemortis credits. Also, I've got my Udemy courses available for sale. These will teach you how to build complete games in the Godot engine, so if that sounds interesting to you, definitely check that out as well. All this support helps, and of course, you could join the Discord. That's free to do. Liking the video, subscribing to the channel, following on Twitch, all that good stuff helps me out immensely. So thank you all for the support. Thank you to everyone who has left feedback and to everyone who's going to leave feedback. I very much appreciate that. And yeah, let's get going here. So I'll say hi to everyone before we get into it. Hello, Tempura Cat Games, welcome back. Diginanigans, hello, hello. Pascal H, welcome back. Bonus Afternoon Fun Time stream. Hello, Chris. Good to see you. I Not Doggo, welcome back. Ungi Bungi, game dev for dinner again. When is mom going to make a beefaroni? Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome. So what have I done? So I've done a couple of massive commits on here. So this is my first commit on this branch, and then this commit here, and then this commit. Well, that's not a big one, but then this one. So I completely reworked how my status system works. Maybe a complete rework is not the right word, but I've refactored a lot of how this works, and I do still actually need to test some of the artifacts. So maybe we'll test the artifacts first, but basically the way that this status application works now is I have a status context object, which has now grown in terms of the data that it expects. It now takes a status type and a status factory. And what happens when I go to basically apply poison is I create that apply status context, pass in the status type, pass in the status factory here. And that creates the new instance of the poison status. I also have the receiver board, initiator board, turn context, all this stuff, as well as the stacks to apply. And so what's happening is it will take that apply status context and it will either apply that, well, first of all, it creates a new stack context. So we've got the apply status context, which is like it's just like the broader overall, here's the status that I want to apply. And then the stack context is the sort of individual stacks for that application that I want to apply. And of course, I'm logging which card applied it, the initiator board, receiver board, all that good stuff. And then what I do is I check for an existing status. If I don't have an existing status, I create one with the status factory and then assign that in the status component. Otherwise, I just apply these stacks from the stack context here. And now the way that this stuff works is that in the poison status, for example, anytime I apply stacks, I just add a new entry to this stack entries list. And that's all of the individual stack contexts. So I'm still keeping track of which cards and which boards are responsible for each segment of an applied status. So if I've got 10 poison, for example, 2 of that poison might be from one card, 4 of that poison might be from another card, and like 6 of that poison might be from an artifact or something. So I'm retaining all of that data now so that I can more accurately put that information, for example, in the combat log, but also so I can just more accurately track where all the sources of damage are coming from. And then inside of execute here, yeah, all I'm doing is basically just applying that poison damage. And then I have this tick entries, which is then making sure to clean up any status stack entries which are invalid, which are stacks that have no turns remaining or where the stacks to apply is 0 or less. So the one thing that I will want to do now is I'm creating one damage context object for all of the poison stacks, and then I have this get damage breakdown here, which is creating a list of basically what is all making up this total damage. I am going to change that. I'm going to instead do an individual damage context application to the board combat component here. So I'm going to call damage for each individual source of poison. And that's just going to make it a lot easier to reason about, but it's also going to give me the granular data that I need. But that's going to come with some side effects that have to be addressed. The main side effect being that in my board combat component here, every time I do some kind of damage, like damage physical, it's creating a damage float, like a text float. So it's actually creating the damage number in the UI, the numbers that pop out of the board whenever damage is applied. And so obviously, since I'm not going to be grouping up poison, for example, all into a single damage application, I'm going to need to like batch those so that, you know, I'm going to be doing a bunch of poison. So if I've got 10 poison, like I said, instead of just doing 10 poison at once, I might do 2 poison, 4 poison, 6 poison, all in this loop here, or all in this execute method here. But I want that to all be batched under one like text float number, so it still looks like a unified status, but I'm still preserving the granularity of it beyond that. And then that's also going to allow me to fill out this buy card initiator board, so on and so forth. So I think it's going to be good, but yeah, it's going to require some work. And then I had to rework like Snail Cat and stuff because that was broken. But anyway, we want to first check. I want to see if this apprentice wand is working first, and the skeletal hand as well. So I'm going to go just enable that stuff. Where is... Oh, test player artifacts is there. We're going to get rid of this. We're just going to do wand for now. Let's see if this works. So we're going to do training dummy. We've got that on. So let's see what's happening. Hello, Owen Ju. I am John Mortis. Have you heard of the game Alchemortis? It's a roguelite inventory management auto battler that... Oh, I'm at the dev stream. Never mind. Yeah. Welcome back. Good to see you. Good to see you. I hear Alchemortis is going to be a banger, but we'll see. So this apprentice wand, whenever a status is applied, there's a 30% chance it'll be transformed into a different status. So I want to see if this applies something other than poison on occasion, and we'll see what happens. It looks like it has done poison every single time. That's good. Is this working? This may not be working. It's a good thing I'm testing this. It's only it's a 30% chance, so it seems unlikely that I would have done poison this many times in a row. Oh, and we got a crash, or a bug. Okay, good. Index was out of range, must be non-negative. All right, so that's in the wand here. So let's take a look at that. I may have just done this wrong. So we've got eligible statuses, we've got our status factories. For each of our factory in status factories, new context equals context with. New contexts remove all. So basically what I'm doing is for each... So basically taking the context that's coming in, this apply status context, I'm copying over all of the data in the status context. Oh, but the only thing I'm not doing, I'm not changing the status type. I see. I see, okay. So maybe what I want to do is eligible statuses. Maybe this should be a dictionary actually, because I think what I'm not doing is I'm not changing the status type here either. So I think that that's probably causing the problem. So yeah, I probably need to change this to be a dictionary instead. Read-only list, read-only dictionary. Type, typo, not typo, type, func, status context, status stat context base status, type to status factory. All right, now I forgot how to actually initialize a dictionary here. There we go. Is that right? Left-hand side. Does it not like that? Maybe it doesn't like that. Can I not use type of in the left-hand side here? I guess not. What happens if I do... Or am I just doing this wrong? Oh my gosh. Am I doing something wrong here? Doesn't like that. It's time for Game Dev once again. Hello, Jackie Daytona. Welcome. Good to see you. Why is that not working? All right. Well, we're gonna do a mulligan here. We're gonna ask, what is wrong with this? I feel like I'm just making a simple mistake here. Do I need to have it do new dictionary? Oh, I guess maybe I do need to use the new constructor and not just this. New. Okay. I guess it doesn't let me use that. I don't even know what that's called. The syntactic sugar constructor, we can call it. Anyway, type to status factory, so that's good. I can get rid of this now. Eligible statuses, so type to status factory contains key status type. For each var entry in type to status factory, we're going to do entry.value, and then we're going to do status type is equal to entry.key. That should do it. So I need to set those two pieces of information on that. I think that's basically what was happening, but let's go ahead and check. Yeah, curly braces was the thing. That's what I needed. Welcome back, by the way, Stray Pointer. Good to see you. All right, let's see what happens now. This 30% seems like way lower than 30%. Oh, there we go. I applied shield to the enemy. Nice. And then the combat log just works here. Ceremonial dagger applied 1 preserve to enemy. Ceremonial dagger applied 1 bleed. Okay, so this wand is working. Whenever a status is applied, there's a 30% chance it will be transformed into a different status. So yeah, I think that's I think that works. Okay, that's great. So that's working. And then the other thing that we need to test is the skeletal hand, I think. This one, increase poison and preserve stacks applied by allied cards by 1. So let's do skeletal hand. Let me just make sure I didn't make that same mistake in the skeletal hand. I don't think so. So this new context system that I have is a lot easier to work with, actually. So you can see here that, you know, if I hit that 50% chance, I just take the exact context object, but all I change is the stacks to apply here. And it's as simple as that, folks. It's as simple as that. So I'm pretty sure this one is going to work, but I'm glad I tested the apprentice wand as well. So let's see. So this should sometimes apply 2 poison. Oh, yep, it applied 2 poison right there. Then applied 1 poison there. Okay, cool. All right, so that's working. Excellent. All right, so I'll just go ahead and push that fix. Just got to make sure that I'm testing everything that I'm changing. All right, so back to the issue at hand, which is that I want to batch these. Well, first I want to get rid of this damage breakdown. We're not going to do this anymore. So we're not going to do that anymore. Okay. So I got rid of that breakdown, and now what I need to do is let's just fix all of my statuses now. So this is going to become a little bit nicer. So what I'll do is I will do, instead of doing damage equals stacks here, I'll do for each var entry in stack entries, and then stack entries, and then we'll do this in here, and I can actually just go ahead and put that in there too, since I'm already doing that loop. Okay, so the damage amount is going to be equal to stack entries. No, it would be entry dot stat. What is it called? Dot context dot stacks to apply. Initiator board. Entry dot context dot initiator board. Buy card entry dot context dot buy card. Like so. Is critical hit? Yeah, it's not a critical hit. And we've got the static execution context, turn context there. Okay, so that should work. So I need to do this for each relevant thing. I think shield is going to be the weird one. Shield kind of works a little bit. It's a little bit wonky the way that it works. So this may not actually work with shield, but I also don't have that get damage breakdown being used anywhere in here. So we're going to have to keep an eye on the shield and how that shield data is going throughout the system. But in here, let's just go ahead. I mean, I don't really need to do this for necrosis either, because it's never going to be dealt by a card or whatever, so that's fine. Holy now. Get damage breakdown. Yeah, so I think in here I need to do for each var entry in stack entries. This is where we're going to want to put this block, because we're getting rid of this damage breakdown now. And now I can do entry.context.stacks to apply, entry.context.buy card. Now this is this gonna break? Let me think. This might break the combat log a little bit. Yeah, it's probably gonna break the combat log, but this is a better, I want to collect the data in as granular a way as possible. So this is a better approach for sure. Yeah, it's just something that I need to keep an eye on, I guess. I'm going to be reworking the combat log anyway, So we'll worry about that later. Damage context. Okay, here we go. Entry.context by card, entry.context.stats to apply, entry.context.initiator board. Get rid of this damage breakdown. Cool. And then we got to do the same for bleed. Now the initiator board in here, yeah, I think the initiator board in here can probably be the entry.context.initiator board as well. Entry.context by card stacks to apply. Okay, so we're creating a different damage context object for each individual entry in all the statuses. So now we got to go to the board combat component, and the big thing is I want to batch these things. Okay. So I think I only want to batch the damage that it, well, actually, this is physical. So I might have to, in the damage context, I might have to do another bool in here. Let's do something like is batched. Something like that. And then in poison, we're going to want to do this. Is batched equals true. Holy status is batched equals true. Fire status is batched equals true. And then bleed status. I think that's right. All right, so let's batch this then. So how are we going to batch this floating text number? That's a good question. Why am I not? I wonder why I'm not just passing in the damage context into each of these things. Wonder if I should rework this. Are these any? The only thing that's happening different between. Oh, well, damage shield is a little bit different. Heal is a little bit different. Most of these look exactly the same, though. Yeah, I don't know. Do I want to do that? Damage, fire, damage. Do I want to do that? Do I want to just merge these? Because we got the damage type physical. That's already on the context. So like all this data is already on the context object, I think. I mean, I am using this new remaining damage. I wonder, I should probably, fudge. I should probably just... Yeah, I almost wonder if I should just do... I'll just create a parallel method here. Damage without tracking. Oh, damage physical. Okay. I think this is used by artifacts. Which I probably do want to track artifact damage anyway. I don't know. We'll see. Hello, Arion. Welcome back. Good to see you. My brother never stops. No, I don't. When you're motivated, you're motivated. Firebelly is motivated. Alchemortis isn't going to get built by itself, you know? And everyone... Well, maybe I shouldn't be too hyperbolic. Most of the people who are playing the playtest seem to enjoy it, and there's a segment of people who are playing the playtest who are like really enjoying it. I've heard people playing it for 6+ hours, 12 hours. It's kind of nuts to me, honestly. So that is very motivating. It makes me want to get the game finished as quickly as possible, like get the full version out there. Because if there's that much excitement about this version of the game with all of its warts and flaws and bugs, then the only thing standing between, you know, this version of the game and the final version of the game is just the amount of effort that I put into it, right? So makes it easier to work on when you have that going on for sure, but still a ton of work to do. But what else are we going to do, you know? What else are we going to do? Hello, Bomb That Implodes. Did we get a green screen? It's, yeah, it's basically a green screen. It's not really a green screen. It's the NVIDIA broadcast STK that just cuts you out with AI, which is great because I don't need to set up a whole green screen. You really work on game dev all day? I mean, all day is a stretch. You know, I probably do like 6 to 8 hours of work on a normal day, on a good day. So no, I don't do this all day, no. But is where most of my efforts are going. I'm at 6 for this playtest. Excellent. Yeah, that's just mind-blowing to me. How are your wishlist numbers looking? Not good enough. I think I'm around 2,000 now, but just downloaded the playtest. I'll make notes for which characters would be optimal for romance arcs. Thank you. Appreciate that. I appreciate that. I don't know what I want to do here. Okay, anyway. If damage context dot damage amount is less than or equal to 0, we're just going to return. So that's basically a case that I have on all of these. Switch damage context dot damage type. Case damage type. We'll just start with physical. We're not going to use the damage physical here. So we're going to do health component dot damage here. Damage context dot damage amount. Okay. And then what we want to do is we want to... This is where the batching is going to come into play. So maybe I'll change this. Is crit float amount. Why is this a float? That don't make no sense. So here's what I'm going to do. I need let's do a dictionary, private dictionary, damage type, int amount, batched. Oh no, I can't do that. Batched damage accumulator equals this. You could do a read only, I suppose. So batched damage accumulator. So let's do this. Break here. And then if damage context.is batched, we're going to say batched damage accumulator.try get value. Damage context.damage type out var current amount plus equals damage context dot damage amount, and then we're going to say reassign that there. And then what we want to do is we want to do callable. I probably want, let's do private bool is batched damage queued, something like that. Okay, and then we'll do if not is batched damage queued. We're going to do callable dot from. What do I want to call this? Maybe we'll do a private void process batched damage, something like that. In process batched damage, what we're going to do, so we'll do callable.from process batch damage.call deferred. And then we'll do is batched damage queued equals true. So in here, what we'll do is we'll do for each var entry in batched damage accumulator. We're going to do try create damage float, and we're going to do entry dot. No. Oh, we need to store if this is a crit too. Oh no. So I'm going to have to handle that case too. I mean, we could just say that if it's batched, it can't do crit. Do I want to? I mean, there are no cases really where I'm going to want to do that. Obviously, in a more mature solution, I'd only want to batch crits with non-crits together. But I'd have to separate that out of my dictionary even more. So I guess we'll just do it the easy way first. So we're going to do try create damage float entry.value false entry.key. And then what we want to do is we want to do batched damage accumulator.clear and then is batched damage queued equals false. Okay. I think that should work. Well, right now I'm only handling the physical damage type. So let's just do this one at a time. I'm just going to get rid of that. Let's do heal as well. I think that's easy enough. Oh, else I need to do try create text float is critical hit damage type. Okay. Why is this a float? This can just be an int, right? Does that break anything? I don't think so. All right, so we got heal. So the shield damage is a little bit weird. But I think that's okay. I'm just going to copy this. Oops, I don't need this actually. Just break that. Okay. Poison again. So actually I can just do this. Case damage type dot poison. Damage type physical. So those go down the same path. Damage holy is the same thing. And necrosis is also the same thing. And fire is also the same thing. So what did I say? Holy, necrosis, and fire. Case, damage type dot holy. Damage type necrotic. Okay. Physical seems like what I want up here first. Anyway. So those 4 damage types go down the same path. So that's fine. Shield needs a special handling. Heal needs special handling. Okay. All right, let's try that. Just finished my Bloodborne live stream and can come back here. What a pleasant day it is. Yeah, Bloodborne is a nice way to spend an evening for sure. Hello, Bubblegum Lord. Welcome back. Saw your video was great. Thank you, Code Red. Thank you. Appreciate that. Won't have much free time this week, so probably ended my playtesting, but I've had so much fun this past week regarding your video. You really nailed that one more run feeling. Game is really addictive in a good way. I was looking forward to release as a viewer of streams. Now I'm really hyped as a gamer also. That's great, thank you. You clocked 16 hours. Real time, more like 12 as I once forgot to turn off the game while AFK. Really good job, awesome, thank you. Wow, that is just amazing. I don't know, yeah. We gotta try not to drop the ball here. Give you guys lots of content so that the runs don't get stale, they don't get boring. You've got a lot to do. We're gonna see what we can do. What are you working on? What is being fixed or implemented? I'm just tweaking and refactoring some of my systems to get data into a more granular format because I'm gonna need that for the meta progression system. The meta progression system is gonna be goal-based. So in other words, like I want, you know, let's say that I want to have a goal where it's like apply 100 poison damage with a single card during a run, right? Previously, I didn't really have a way of attributing the total poison damage to a card because of the way that the poison damage was being handled in the system. So I'm updating all those systems so that I can capture basically any amount of data that I want to capture related to any of those damage numbers. And then I can use that for gathering the run statistics. And that can be used for unlocking things in the future. Hello, Ninja Link. Welcome, welcome. I've only had a chance to check it out for about half an hour, and I don't think I've quite grasped all the mechanics, but I enjoyed the bit I played of it. Planning on checking it out more this week. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I think the game is, it doesn't explain itself in a lot of ways, which is definitely something that I need to address for sure. So I'll be doing that as one of my main focus points. But I think right now I'm in the stage of development where I know all of the problems with the game, the quality of life things that need to be fixed. And so right now I'm focused on like just getting the broad brush strokes of the next major systems in place so that I have something meaningfully different for the next playtest. And of course, I'm going to also include as many quality of life changes as I can for the next playtest too. But yeah, kind of in the stage of development where just kind of get something down for the next phase of the development, and then we can iterate on that next as well. So yeah. Anyway, what was I doing here? Okay. So now we got to update all of these things. Heal to full. Create damage text float. This needs to be like mathf.round to int probably. Okay. I don't know why the health component numbers are not integers either, but we'll figure that out. Damage without tracking. I think this is used by, yeah, it's used by the poison heal. I don't necessarily think that I want this to be this way, but let's just go ahead and damage without tracking. We don't have damage physical anymore. I'll deal with that later. So we've got the adjusted amount here. Damage amount, get absorbable shield damage. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. So here I can just do damage internal with damage context with damage amount equals adjusted amount. And that should be basically it. And so I just need to do that for everything. So damage internal, damage context with. Kind of think it's funny how the heal is also using damage internal. Damage internal. Oh wait, does this one, hold on a second. This needs the adjusted amount, but this can be just be damage internal, damage context. And actually, yeah, we'll just do that. This can be damage internal. Okay, damage internal, damage context with remaining damage. This doesn't need to specify the type as being fire because that's already fire in this block. Okay. Damage internal, damage context. Oops. Okay. All right, so that seems to be a little bit cleaner. Now I just need to figure out what to do with this. I guess we'll just do damage physical, new damage context. Buy card equals null, initiator board is null. This can just be damage internal here. Damage type physical, damage amount. Yeah. I think all that's good, so that's fine. Let's get rid of all these things now. Okay. Is that basically it? So really, I just wanted to try the batching. So what I need is I need multiple... This is probably going to break the combat log too. But for example, I need multiple bleed applicators, and then we're going to see if this works. So let's go to project settings. Let's put a maggot in here. Do I still have training dummy on? Yes. So the idea here is that even if I apply bleed from multiple cards, it should all get batched into a single like floating text number. Now I don't know how that's going to look in the combat log. I think this may break the combat log, but that's all right. So if I put this with the maggot, so we've got two sources of bleed here. So what I should see is that after this bleed is applied, the training dummy will take bleed equal to the bleed applied. So that's, wait, why is it applying 2 bleed? Oh, I have the, let me turn this off so it doesn't mess me up. I have an artifact enabled which increases the amount. All right, so let's see what happens. This might be broken, but that's why we're here. We want to see things break. So we've got 1 bleed there. Okay, so the training dummy, maggot applied 1 bleed, training dummy dealt. Yeah, so this combat log is broken now. So you see this, the maggot applied 1 bleed, it applied 1 bleed here. And then when the training dummy took damage as a result of bleed, it's saying that the maggot dealt 1 damage twice. But each of those damage things are coming from the bleed that it applied. It's not coming from a maggot's individual turn. So I kind of figured that was going to break things, but let's see. So it's got 6 bleed here. So then when the training dummy goes, dealt 1 damage, the maggot dealt 1 damage, the scythe dealt 3 damage. Is that 6 bleed? 1, 2, 3, 4. One bleed, 1 bleed. So 3 bleed. I can't tell if this is working. Training dummy dealt 1 damage, and then it took 1, 4, 5, 6. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. So it took 6 bleed damage, but the damage is now being attributed, because of the way that I've changed the data, the damage is now being attributed to those individual cards. So the question now is, I mean, I should probably fix it so that the combat log is working in the way that it currently works. So yeah, I probably need to fix that. How am I gonna do that? Shoot. Well, ultimately the problem is the way that this is being logged in the turn history now. The combat log is fed off of the turn history, and the turn history is being logged. It's being logged here. So for example, I do the physical damage here, damage internal. It's being tracked here. So it's tracking damage dealt, and it's saying that the damage is being dealt by the card. So actually, I have no current way of differentiating whether the... Let me think. I have no current way of differentiating between damage that is taken as a result of a status and damage that is taken as a result of a card. So this is the next main thing to figure out here. So once this data, this bleed damage that the enemy board is taking, once it ends up in the current history entry, it looks exactly the same as if the maggot or the scythe had dealt direct damage to the thing. So there's no piece of data in here that is letting me know that the damage that is being logged is the result of a status. It makes it just look like it's the result of the card directly attacking it. So I need to think about how I want to do that. And the obvious thing to do here is to put some kind of status field in here, so like from status or something, or something like initiator status type, or maybe buy card is not, I could do something like buy status type or something like that. And that gives me that piece of data that tells me that even though the damage is attributed to the card, it's still a result of like the bleed that card applied, right? Now I'm trying to think if that's going to actually be useful or not. Is just putting the status type in here enough? I am going to want to keep the buy card in here because eventually, as I move to a more complicated or more informative combat log, I still need this buy card here so that I know, like if you're looking at your combat log and you say, oh, the enemy took 50 damage as a result of bleed, I want you to be able to see like what cards actually contributed to that bleed amount. Not just the cards, but like what artifacts contributed to the bleed amount, what card attributed to the bleed amount. So eventually this would grow into also having something like buy artifact, something like that. And then with those 3 pieces of information, I can piece together the combat log there. I'm just trying to think if that's the appropriate approach or if I should do something a little bit different. Sounds good. Really cool to watch the progress of this all as you work on it. Yeah, I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. Twitch stream, let's go. Hello, Bear Like Lion. Welcome. Good to see you here. How are you doing? Budget Jim, welcome. What about adding damage source that has an enum for card, poison, fire, etc.? The thing is, I don't think that poison and fire, so whether it's applied by a card, what am I trying to say? A damage entry can be attributable to a card and to fire damage, right? So it's not mutually exclusive. It's not, it either received this damage from a card or it received this damage from fire. It could have received fire damage from the fire status that was initiated by this card, right? So I need all of that information. It's not one or the other, it's all of the above, right? Do you have a specific stream schedule or do you just stream whenever? I stream 10 a.m. in the mornings, 10 a.m. Eastern in the mornings, and then whether I stream in the afternoon or not is just basically up to if I want to or not. I want to start streaming in the mornings, but my work schedule moves around a lot. Oh yeah, that's unfortunate. Dang work. Well, I mean, let's just try to add the type, the status type in here, I guess. So we got the damage context. We could do something like, I'm not going to make it required, but let's do public type by status type. Oh, can this not be null? Oh, it can be null. Okay. So do by status type. This may need to become even more complex in the future, but we could just do by status type equals type of poison status. By status type equals type of holy status. By status type equals type of fire status. By status type equals type of bleed status. And I probably need to go... This shield is interesting because it's not doing any damage. So I think the necrosis is the only last one here. By status type equals type of necrosis status. So that will tell me whether this field is null or not. That will tell me if the damage is coming as a result of a status being processed. It's not the most elegant thing in the world, but I need that piece of information. And then I also need to put that in here as well. Inside of the damage dealt entry. And then we also have a status applied entry. So that is a different thing. That just tracks how many times you applied the status. So there's not necessarily a one-to-one relationship. It's not necessarily the case that if you apply 20 poison, you'll get 20 poison damage out. I mean, that's not how poison works. Poison decays over a number of turns. So when you apply 20 poison, you actually end up doing much more than 20 damage over the course of the next several turns. So there's not a one-to-one relationship between status applied and damage output. So I think it makes sense to put the actual by status type here in damage dealt entry. I think that's okay. And so now I just need to make sure that I'm passing that bit of information along. I could probably make a helper method to construct these things for me, but it's okay. Am I ever using this? Receiver board as player. Oh, yeah. I'll just pass this along everywhere. Do not repeat yourself except when it's easier to do so. I'm pretty sure shield is never going to be applicable, but might as well just make it consistent so I don't get any nasty surprises. Okay, all right. So let's see if we can fix it in the combat log now. Combat log manager. All right, on damage dealt tracked. This could probably be simplified. So I think down here, damage dealt entry by card is not equal to active card. If damage dealt entry by card is not equal to null and damage dealt entry by card is not equal to active card, we're changing the state. Okay. Else, if damage entry by card equals null, I think this needs to be if damage entry by card equals null or damage dealt entry dot by status type is not equal to null. I think that's what I need to do. So this is, again, I'm not focused on updating the combat log. That's going to be a broader effort. Right now, I'm just trying to get it back to parity with what I had before I started reworking the system. So as long as it's just saying now that the enemy board took whatever amount of damage. Although now this is going to be a problem. Son of a biscuit. It's still going to log multiple... It's still going to log multiple different lines, so I'm going to have to fix that as well. I guess I can use that batched flag, though. Can I use the batched flag? Oh, dang it. Anyway, let's just see what happens. So apply 1 bleed. Enemy board took 1 damage. Enemy board took 1 damage. Wait, that doesn't seem right. Enemy board took 1 damage. 3 bleed, 1 bleed, 1 bleed. Oh, it's still saying maggot dealt 1 damage. What? Why is that happening? Interesting. So enemy board took 1 damage. What the heck? Oh, I guess I probably need to do this. So if the card is not equal to null and the damage dealt status type is equal to null and that, I have no idea. Let's see if that works. Hopefully when I do go to redo the combat log, I can make it a lot more sensible now with all the additional data that I have. Combat log is going to be kind of a mess. I have a kind of a cool idea for the combat log, though. I'd love to show like a timeline of each turn in the combat and then put like on each node on the timeline, you can click into it or hover over it or whatever, and it will show like all the cards that executed on that turn. And then if there's some bleed damage that's taken by the enemy board further down the line, I would love to be able to just like show those instances of bleed damage and like draw arrows back to the cards that they're attributed to or something like that. I don't know. We'll see. But right now the purpose is to get all that data in place that I'm going to need for that kind of thing. Okay, yeah. So this is working. So we had 6 bleed and it's saying the enemy board took 1 damage, 3 damage, 1 damage, 1 damage. Okay. So here's the next problem, though. Those are all individual damage entries, which means that they're all being individually logged instead of being grouped up. So you could see here, let's see if we can retrace this. The maggot is applying 1 bleed. Why is that doing that? Oh yeah, that makes sense. So the maggot applies 1, let's see. That's 1 bleed, that's 2 bleed, 5 bleed, 7 bleed. Hold up a second. Let's go a little bit slower. Oops. I didn't put any cards into the board. That's not good. That's not good. By the evening, I'm so sleepy that my streams are so boring. Yeah. Streaming when you don't have energy is not good. It's not a great way to keep viewers engaged. Okay, so let's see. So we've got 5 bleed now. 6 bleed. 5 bleed. So the maggot's going to apply 1 more bleed. I mean, I think it's working because this all adds up to 6 right here. Maggot applied 1 bleed, 1 bleed. Scythe applied 3. So I suppose one of these bleeds is falling off or something. 1 bleed, 1 bleed. That should only be 5, but it's taking 6 damage. Is that right? What? Oh, yeah, that's right. So the weird thing is here, so this has a turn cooldown of 8 and this has a turn cooldown of 4. So what's happening is on the second execution of the maggot, it's going at the same time as the training dummy. So the maggot, because of the way the execution order works, it's sneaking in another bleed application before a bleed application falls off. So that's where the 6 is coming from. So yeah, I think that makes sense. Anyway, the big problem here is that these numbers are not being grouped up. Oh boy, here's another problem. How are we going to fix that? Also, I never even checked if my batch processing of numbers worked. It did, okay. So you see how that did, even though this is showing 4 individual applications of damage, but because I have the batching in place now, we're just seeing one number here, this 1-6 number there. So the batching is working. That's good. Can I extend the batching system to also have the combat log take that into account? Can I do that? Because basically what the combat log is doing is every time this on damage dealt tracked is happening, it's It's just going ahead and immediately adding a log to it. It's almost like I need another state in here, which will listen for if we've started a batch section of damage dealt entries and then detect when the batch changes or something. Is that going to be... Oh, no. Yeah, I'm going to need to do something to handle batching in here. Because basically what I need to do is... So there's 4 separate damage dealt entries coming in. This is being invoked 4 times. 1 for each of those separate damage dealt entries. And this is just very straightforward. It just says, hey, let's take the damage dealt entry and add a log for it. So those need to be grouped up. I mean, I have kind of an idea of what I want to do here. I could create a random sort of batch ID, and I could just say, okay, if we're encountering a damage dealt entry that has a batch ID that's different than the previous damage dealt entry, then we're going to start a new like batch group, and we're not going to actually log anything until we've processed all of that batch. But there's got to be a simpler way to handle that. I was recommending having both by card and the damage source rather than a specific status type cards, since it's more broad. Let's say you ever added an artifact that dealt damage directly. Oh, right. Yeah, I'm going to add like another like by artifact parameter there. But damage source, by card and the damage source rather than a specific status type. Yeah, so damage source, I think like, yeah, artifact and card are mutually exclusive. So damage source would work, but they're still different types. So I'm still going to need a separate entry for either an artifact or a card. But here's the thing. Artifacts can be responsible for statuses too still, right? So an artifact could be responsible for the fire damage that's being taken. So I still need to log the status there too. So I think the way I have it is going to work. I might be misunderstanding you still, but I think it's going to work. Hello, Emerson. Welcome. I was playing Dark Souls 2. Dark Souls 2, the worst Dark Souls. I probably angered some people with that statement. I apologize. I retract. Anyway, I'm going to take a quick 3-minute break, and when I come back, we have to figure out how to batch these things. I don't really want to spend too much time on it because the combat log is going to change anyway, but I also want it, like I said, I want to get it back to parity with what we've got currently in the game, just so I don't confuse myself. Dark Souls 2 ain't that bad. It is the worst, though. No, yeah, I agree. It's a Dark Souls game still. It's still fun, but, you know, it was not my favorite Dark Souls game. Anyway, I'll be right back in 3 minutes, and we will continue on. All right, your favorite niche e-celeb is back, everybody. I just started. I want to form my own opinion, but I agree it doesn't have a good reputation. Yeah, I mean, it's like to have a bad reputation as a Dark Souls game is still to have a great reputation in gaming generally, right? Like if you were stranded on a desert island with the first 3 Dark Souls only to play, I think you'd be sitting pretty. I think you'd be just fine. If using an enum called damage source for a particular instance of damage is currently being taken from, not necessarily where the status or damage originated from, where a particular instance of damage is currently being taken from, not necessarily where that status or damage originated from, then you can more easily... We'll wait for the rest of that. I think the thing is, though, I do need where the damage originated from. Like, that is going to be part of the new combat log. Handle things like logging with damage source equals card without a bunch of and or logic between several options. Oh, I see. Yeah, so it could be an additional piece of information that says where the damage is currently being taken from. Let's see. Right, so it'd be a third piece of information that just says, you know, it's being taken from a status or whatever. Yeah, and that would just simplify this logic. That's what you're saying. Yeah, maybe. I'd have to look at it. The other thing is I don't necessarily want to clutter my damage dealt entry with stuff that's only relevant to the combat log. Because I think... Yeah, I'm going to have to think about that a little bit more. We'll see. I'm not suggesting you remove the buy card. I could also just do like computed properties in here too. Like is from status or whatever. Public bool is from status. Buy card equals null. Something like that. I don't know. We'll see. I just don't want to have to keep track of another enum and have to set that everywhere properly. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe that will make things simpler. But right now we got to get this batching. Damage dealt entry by status type. 1 second. So I think what I need is maybe I need, I don't know. Maybe I need like a batch ID or something. Let's see. Do I want to use a batch ID? Is batched. If damage context.is batched. So the way that its system currently works is that the batches are going to all come sequentially. So if I have something like a batch ID, do I want to do a batch ID? I mean, that would be a good way. I mean, I would just in the combat log manager here, I would have to check if this damage dealt entry, the batch ID coming in, is different than the previous ID. And if it's different, then start the batching process. So I may be able to unify this, maybe just like pass everything through the batching logic, but just make each individual damage entry increment a batch ID, unless it's part of a batch, in which case, how's that going to work? Interesting. Is that the right way to go? Hello, Sacrificial. Hello, Evan. I'm surprised this has not ended yet. We're not even an hour and a half into this stream, so we'll keep going for a while. I think you could have two things, buy entity and damage source. Buy entity could replace buy card, buy status, and buy artifact. And whatever other damage status sources you add to your game, damage source would allow you to handle specific instances of damage, or where they were applied from, directly from a card, from a stacked status, etc. No, I buy entity, I can't combine the buy entity. I don't think. Number one, those aren't the same types, right? So buy a card is not the same as a status, is not the same as an artifact. So combining those into an entity doesn't work because I still need to retain the reference. So the thing that, this is not just powering the combat log. This is powering the entire turn history, which is being used for the querying of other card abilities. So if I want to know how many times a specific card dealt damage within a turn execution range, then I need to have the card data. I can't flatten it down into just like an ID or anything, which I would have to do, or I could create like somehow make them extend the same type or have the same interface like iEntity or something. But no, I think those need to be distinct. Those need to be distinct in the damage dealt entry here, because these are not, like I said, these are not just for the combat log. Actually, these weren't even primarily made for the combat log. These are primarily made for the turn history, so that I can query, you know, the turn histories of the game and add a bunch of numbers up. So I can't collapse those things down. I don't think that's something I can actually do. Damage source would allow you to handle, so in specific instances of damage where they were applied from, directly from a card, stacked status. Yeah, I don't think that's likely to make the code more easy to reason about. I actually think that would probably make it harder to reason about. Setting up a coffee for my game dev stuff, or Ko-Fi coffee. Do you have any tips for setting up donations? I don't use that service, so. I have Patreon, but Patreon's a little bit different. How am I going to do this batching? So there's a couple ways to do the batching, I guess. I could use a sequential ID that I manage from within here, put out a damage dealt entry, or what I could do is instead of having this is batched, I could replace this with a string ID, batch ID or whatever, and then the presence of that batch ID indicates that it's batched and part of a group that needs to be combined into a single log. Do I want to do that? Oh, shoot. I don't know. Well, I can commit what I have here because this is all more or less working. It's just the combat log that's not... It's not the same as it was. I just meant in general, but it seems pretty simple. Yeah, I mean, I don't have any tips. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to get people to... I mean, I'm obviously like with Alka Mortis, like Patreon donations, I guess you could call them Patreon support. I'm obviously offering a bunch of perks, but the reason why I don't really have anything for Ko-Fi or coffee or whatever it's called is I don't know if you can, I mean, can you offer perks based on donations from there? I just don't know. I mean, obviously the way to sort of, at least the way that I'm approaching asking for financial support is, you know, I offer something in return, right? It's not just send me your money and then that's it, right? It's like there are certain perks that you get for subscribing on Patreon. So, I mean, obviously having some kind of incentive like that can help. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not an expert in these things, so I do not know. I wonder if I should just use like a batch ID here. I don't know. Is that a good idea? Okay. I think I have actually, I'm going to try something. I don't know if this is going to be a good long-term solution, but I have Nano ID in this project. Am I even using that anywhere? No, it's just included in the package for no reason. So what I could do instead is I could just change this to like a batch ID maybe. Okay. So we have the batch ID. If if not string is null or empty, damage context batch ID. We do this now. This batch damage accumulator. Maybe this would change now to the batch ID, and then here this would be something like damage type, and then int accumulated amount, something like that, maybe. Is that gonna work? Try get value, damage context batch ID, current amount, oh, current entry. Does this return null? That doesn't work. So I guess tuples can't be null. So let's just change this then. Can this not be null, really? I don't know, man. I don't know how tuples work. Okay, anyway, that'll work. Okay. Let's just see if that works. Let's see how I actually don't know how to use this package. Oh. Okay. Would the Maggot card and the Scythe card generate different IDs when they both apply bleed, or is the damage context being created separately from the cards that apply the status? Yeah, so we're going to look at that right now. So if I go to my bleed status here, So what's happening is I have all these entries, status stack context. This tells me like how many of the stack. So if I've got 10 total bleed, it will tell me that, for example, 3 of them are coming from the scythe through this buy card, and that the board that originated that, it's going to be the board that contains this buy card, but I'm just putting that in there so I don't need to do an extra query there. And the receiver board is the person receiving the status. But then when I go into the into here, I'm applying a new damage context in sequence here. So I can just generate an ID and share the ID between all of these. So basically, yes, the scythe and the maggot, because they're both contributing to the bleed status, when all the bleed is applied here, so we're creating a separate damage context for each entry in this stack entry. And we're basically just creating the amount of damage equal to, like if the maggot is responsible for 2 bleed, then the maggot's going to be responsible for 2 damage here. We're just firing off a bunch of these in sequence. And so if I just give this a batch ID here, then it's all going to be part of the same ID. Now I can't do this here, obviously, but so every single damage context that's fired off sequentially here is going to have the same batch ID as part of this on card executed. So I think that's going to be okay. I may rework this again, but again, a lot of this is going to be determined by how the combat log rework goes as well. What additional information or how the information is going to change. Okay. So I think that's fine. Let me just see if I broke anything first. And then we're going to have to update the combat log to account for that batching. So we'll do that here, but let's just see. Let's just use the maggot and the scythe again. Okay. Enemy board took 1 damage, took 1 damage. Okay, so I think that's still being batched appropriately. Oh, 12 damage, dang. So yeah, that's still being batched appropriately. So, well, it's not. I mean, it's still working the way that it was. But now what I need to do is go back to the combat log here. Deal with all this stuff. Yeah, so the problem here is this is going to be... The batch ID will work, and I can make it work in this case. The problem is that that's not going to be super pretty. It's not going to be super pretty. This get execution string for damage dealt is taking a single damage dealt entry and formatting a string out of that. So I need like another step in here. In on damage dealt tracked, which can handle accumulating a value from the batches. But then there's a risk too that, like, you know, I mean, this shouldn't be the case, but if I ever have a situation where there's multiple disparate damage types or damage sources in the same batch, it's just going to completely break. So it's not the best solution, but I don't really know if there's a better way around that at the moment. I think I just have to be disciplined and only use the batch ID when I'm creating several types of the same damage. Now, wait a minute. Now here's a problem. Shoot. I actually don't think this approach is going to work. The reason is because, let's say that my training dummy applies shield. So I'll give the training dummy some shielding. It's going to have to say that it took X amount of shield damage. Yeah, it's going to have to say it took X amount of shield damage and then remaining damage after that, I think. Because bleed just does physical damage, and I think shielding should protect that. So I don't, maybe this batch approach is not going to work. I'm going to have to think about this some more. Oops. Yeah, enemy board took 1 preserve damage. So it says it took 1 preserve damage, that's from 1 stack of bleed. Took 3 preserve damage, that's from the scythe stack of bleed. But by that point, its shielding has gone down because I'm only giving it 4 shield, and then it takes 1 damage, 1 damage. But these are different damage types. So I can't just say that everything within the same batch can become 1 line. It actually needs to account for if the damage type has changed. I mean, of course, I guess I could just take those 2 things into account. I could say, well, this is all part of the same batch, because ultimately what's happening in my board combat component here, let's see, so batch ID, so it's taking physical damage as a result of bleed. It's keeping the batch ID in here, so it's taking that damage context and it's just modifying some of the properties in here to damage the shield specifically, but it's still part of the same batch ID. So this batch ID, the shield damage batch ID, is still going to have the batch ID that was generated in this bleed status here. So I guess I would just need to account for the damage type and the batch ID at the same time and accumulate those damage dealt entries differently. And then there's, you know, there's a consideration to be made, like what happens if the buy card change or the initiator board changes. So I may need to give this some more thought as well. I mean, the good news is that batch ID really doesn't do anything with respect to adding... Oh wait, I guess I do need to... Shoot. I still think the batch idea is a good idea because it solves one problem that I didn't think about before, which is that if I have 2 cards on the enemy board that execute on the same turn, and let's say that I have 5 bleed on the enemy board, each of those cards in the previous, just when I was just using a flag, each of those cards would have just contributed to, oh, enemy board took 10 bleed damage. But I don't think I actually want that to be the case either. I think I want to show 5 bleed damage, 1 line for each card that executed. Because again, you can imagine the combat log expanding to say, oh, it took 5 bleed damage as a result of this card executing, and then it took 5 bleed damage again as a result of this card executing, right? So I think the batch idea is good because then that still separates out individual card executions, triggering the bleed damage. So that's fine. That's still a good change. But yeah, the problem is in the case of like the shield here. Oh man, this is too much. Why do you all need a combat log? Why do you need it? Can't you just guess about what your build is doing? Can't you just guess, guys? What issue we're dealing with here? Yeah. I've explained it multiple times in the stream. I don't think I need to rehash it. Basically, the way that I'm storing data now about how statuses like bleed store data in the turn history has changed my combat log in a way that is hard to bring back into line with what currently exists on the playtest branch. Combat log is to help you debug, isn't it? No, the combat log is for players. It's a feature in the game. It's not just for me. It does help me debug, but it's a feature that's going to be reworked and built upon so that players can have more insight into how their build is working. Do you need to know the size of the batch and track how many damage contexts have passed through the log in order to accumulate the numbers before passing to the final output handler? Yeah, I need to do something like that. I don't think I need to know the size of the batch because the batch is going to be all sequential. It's not like I'm going to have, you know, well, maybe I do need to know the size of the batch. Yeah, I might need to know the size of the batch. But they're going to be all sequential. There's not going to be like, you know, bleed damage done by batch number 1, and then something else happens in the middle, and then there's more bleed damage added to batch number 1. That's not a situation that can happen. But I guess I do need to know when a batch is over, or when a batch is done, because let's say that the bleed damage is the last thing that ends the combat. I still need to trigger a combat log update with that batch data. So that's another consideration to make. Like what happens if an enemy dies while I'm in the middle of sending out all of those damage contexts as part of a batch? That should still be reflected in the combat log somehow. This is a tricky problem. There's just a lot of considerations to make. The problem is dealing with the order of the status execution. No, that's not the problem. Hello, V. Welcome. Good to see you again. Well, all right. I have a better idea. We'll keep that batch stuff there because this is fixing a problem that I didn't originally think about. So we're going to keep that in place. But yeah, the combat log, I need to think about that some more. Maybe the batch approach is just not the right approach here. I just think of one status ailment shocked, the affected entity skip 1 execution, next cooldown halved. The problem is each status ailment in my game will have multiple contributors to it, and I need to be able to track that, right? So again, like if I have a meta progression system that's based on like one card, like have one card in the game apply 100 damage or whatever, 100 bleed applications, whatever. That doesn't mean that I'm not tracking 100 bleed total across all the cards. It's this one specific card. I want to see, did this card apply 100 bleed or not, right? So it's a problem with tracking all the contributors to a unified status that is making it a little bit tricky. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about that one some more for sure. I'm gonna have to think about that. But anyway, yeah, I think that'll be it for the stream today. I think it's dinner time for me, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I probably will just not. I don't know. Probably won't work on this for the rest of the night. I need to noodle on this a little bit. Maybe the right approach here is to. Maybe the right approach is to ignore trying to fix the combat log and move into like coming up with a new combat log design and letting that inform what data I need to collect and how. Maybe that's the right approach. Maybe the right approach is to start working more on the meta progression systems and let that data inform kind of what data I need to collect. Or maybe the right approach is to bring the combat log back into parity with how it worked before. So yeah, I need to think about it. But anyway, yeah, thanks for joining, everyone. Perfect way to solve this is to circle back and put on the back burner, move needle if we have to. Yeah, I don't want to just spin my wheels here, so gonna go eat. You got to the end of the stream again, I'm sorry. But anyway, thanks everyone for helping me think through this stuff. Thanks for joining. And again, Alka Mortis playtest is live right now. So go ahead and give it a shot if you're interested in doing so. Leave me some feedback in the Discord. And also, I'll be back at it tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. So if you want to see me continue on this, then yeah, I hope to see you there. Hope you all have a great evening or morning, wherever you are. And I will see you in the next one. Okay, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.